The art of address writing. Today we're going to learn about how to properly write an address. And why are we learning this? Because you are in 7th grade and it would be pretty sad if you didn't know how to properly write an address. It would also be pretty sad if you didn't know your own address, and we don't want to be sad. Therefore, we're going to learn this. So welcome to the lesson on the art of address writing.
So, the information that you are going to need to know in order for this to work is your name, your house number and street name, your city, state, and zip code. Side note, see that letter S doodle in the corner? I was thebomb.com at making those bad boys in junior high. That has nothing to do with address writing, but that's why it's a side note.
So there are several things that are important when you write your address. These are non-negotiables, especially if you don't want to seem ignorant about address writing. So those things are capitalization, proper punctuation marks, the arrangement or order of what you write, and the general layout, and those are all critical elements of address writing. We'll review each of these elements today.
So, writing an address is different depending on the context. On envelopes, there is a very specific format and layout that must be followed, especially if you want the United States Postal Service to deliver your mail. Did you know if it's not written properly, your mail will not be sent? On the other hand, sometimes you will have to fill out forms. On forms, your address is written a bit differently. So we'll discuss both of these, but the first one we're going to go into is the envelope style of address formatting.
The recipient's name and address is written very neatly in the center of the envelope. The sender's name and address goes in the upper left-hand corner. It needs to be neat and legible, but it's usually a bit smaller than the recipient's name and address. Also, mail requires postage stamps. Postage stamps are stickers or stamps sold by the United States Postal Service as payment for their delivery services.
Okay, so the layout and order is very important in address writing. So if my recipient were Ponyboy, this is how I would address the envelope. Notice, Ponyboy's first and last name are on the top line. Then comes his house number and street name. On the last line is the city, state, and zip code. The same goes for the sender's information in the upper left-hand corner. We'll take a closer look at each component here on the next slide.
So think of it as having 3 lines. The name of the recipient is on the top line, and as with all proper nouns, it is capitalized. The house number is next. In this case, it is a school or business, but it is still called a house number. After that, on the same line, is the street name. You can abbreviate words like road, street, boulevard, and lane. You don't have to abbreviate it, though. If you do choose to abbreviate it, the first letter is capitalized, and there is a period. Abbreviations must be done in an accurate way. On the last line, the name of the city or town must be listed. Notice, as a proper noun, both Pepper and Pike are capitalized. Notice also that there is a comma between the city and state. This is the case whether you are writing an address or not. A city and state listed together must always include a comma. As a side note, when you abbreviate a state's name, you do not use a period. You must use 2 capital letters, though. Lastly, list the zip code. Sometimes you'll see people list the zip code on a 4th line below all of this.
Now we're going to take a look at another correct example. Once again, notice the name of the recipient is on the top line, and as with all proper nouns, it is capitalized. The house number is on the next line, which after that is the street name. Sometimes streets have abbreviations for east or other directions like that. Remember, you can abbreviate words like east or even words like road or street or boulevard. If you do that, just to review, the first letter must be capitalized and there is a period. Abbreviations really have to be done correctly. If there's an apartment number or a floor number or a unit number, it would be listed on the middle line after the street, as shown in this picture. On the third line, the name of the city or town is listed. Again, in this case, it's a 2-word town, Woodmere Village, and both are capitalized, and that has to happen. Notice also the comma between the city and state. Don't forget, when you abbreviate a state's name, you do not use a period. You only use 2 capital letters. Lastly, you list the zip code. As a quick side note, sometimes people don't use their street address for receiving mail. Instead, they pay for a P.O. box or a post office box, which is a box at the post office that they have a key to. In that case, you would list the P.O. box on the second line instead of the street address.
This is a common list of abbreviations, and it is by no means comprehensive. When in doubt, if you're not sure what the abbreviation is for the road or the street, just spell it out because abbreviations are not required.
Okay, so here's a little bit of practice. Which one is correct? I'm going to allow you a minute. Okay, so the blue one is correct. The yellow one is incorrect because the abbreviation for road is missing a period, and that alone makes it incorrect. But furthermore, there must be a comma between the city and the state. So there should be a comma between Orlando and Florida, and there's not. Also, state abbreviations have to have 2 capital letters, but this one doesn't have 2 capital letters. And that's the only correct way to do it. So the blue one is correct.
Okay, now that we know how to write an address using the envelope format, what about when you have to write your address on forms? Address forms can be online when you purchase something, or even when you submit your name for a contest, and for a lot of other reasons. So address forms can be used in doctor offices, at school, signing up for sports or clubs, and in many different areas of life. The good thing about address forms is that usually each field that you have to fill in is labeled for you.
For forms, it seems pretty foolproof. You fill it out. If it says your name, you write your name. If it says your city, you write your city. What you might notice here is that it has address line 1 and address line 2. Depending on your particular address, the second address line, listed above the city there, may be left blank, or it may contain your apartment number. Some people's addresses don't use a second line because they don't have an apartment or building information that needs to be included. So that second address line may or may not be filled in depending on your particular address.
So here's one that is filled out already. It's pretty foolproof. Under name, we have her name. Under address, we have her address. Notice that for address 1, you are supposed to write the house number and the street name. That is standard. That's always how it goes. The house number and the street name always go together. If you don't have an apartment number or a unit number, then address 2 will remain blank.
Well, the biggest thing here is that you have to know your exact address, every single component, in order for you to truly practice this skill. So if you know your city and you know your street, but you're not sure of the house number or something like that, this isn't going to work. So today will be the day that you have to learn it. Many of you already know your exact address, and some of you know most of your address, but maybe not all of it. And hopefully we take care of that today. This does include using exact capital letters and punctuation marks. Even the right spacing is important.
Here's a screenshot of the practice document you're going to be filling out. It is probably a good idea to use a pencil for this since you may need to erase some errors as we go along here.
Here is a filled out example that you might want to refer back to as you're filling out your own practice document. Remember, every single capital letter and punctuation contributes to it being correct or incorrect. Furthermore, the order, the format, and the layout are so important that if they're wrong, the entire address is incorrect. So pay attention to capitalization, punctuation, and spacing. Your teacher can pause the video on this still frame while you work so that you can use this as an example. Good luck as you practice this very important lifelong skill, and please pause the video now.